So first of all, thank you for coming. Today we actually have a very simple topic. It's about DXF and the usage of DXF on the modeling and drawing sides. It's a very simple topic. There's nothing exotic about it, but still many customers ask about how it is used in COMOSYS. And so this is kind of a little training session for those. The reason why it's important, despite being not so exotic, is because AutoCAD files are very common, and most of the data we get as engineers comes in the form of AutoCAD files. So we need to be able to use them and create our model around those AutoCAD files. So the first question, which we need to obviously we'll be talking about both the modeling side as well as the drawing side, and we'll start with the modeling side. And the first question is, how can I import my DXF underlay onto my model, which I can then use for my modeling? So to do that, if you go to the File menu, there's the Import Export section. And under the Import section, you have several options. And you have this option of the DXF 2000, which also tells you that the DXF which we are going to import needs to be the DXF 2000 file format. Another thing which is important over here is, which sometimes people don't realize, is that the DXF objects inside the DXF file, if you have blocks, for example, they need to be exploded. So it will not import the blocks. So if you have blocks, the best way forward is to select everything and explode it. Maybe sometimes even explode it a couple of times, because sometimes you have blocks within blocks. And then after that, you can import it. So once you have your DXF 2000 file, let me click on this. This is the dialog box which will open, and we'll talk about it. Now, obviously, the first thing which you need to do is select the file. And to select the file, you have this little button over here. Let me click on that. And let me select one of these DXF files. Let me select the beam and horizontal bracing. It's a plan view of some steel structure. And let me just go in and open that. When I open that, it brings in the DXF file. And on the left-hand side, you have all the layers which it has found. And you can decide whether you want to import all the layers or some of them. Basically, that you can remove some layers or include them by using these checkboxes. At the moment, I'm just going to continue, and then we'll come back to this dialog box again and again to talk about more detailed stuff. So I'm going to import all the layers, and all I do is press import, and then I can cancel, and my DXF file has been imported. If I press on my plan view button, the 0 over there, I can zoom in and I can see that this is a DXF file which I can now use as an underlay, and I can model over it, basically using the points which it is providing me. So let's try that immediately. Let me go to my steel menu. Let me add this beam over here. This is an IPE 360 beam. Someone has sent me this file. And if I go to my beam command and I zoom in over there, if I zoom in, like this is the working point. So I zoom in over there and I start entering my beam. I zoom out. I go to the other end of this beam. This is the other end. And immediately I have a little problem. I can't snap to this point because this line is missing over here in the DXF, and I can't complete it. I'm in the middle of my command. So what I can do is, without leaving the command, I can go to my point selection mode and I can add a helper line. And then I can snap to this point and this point, and it adds a temporary helper line. And then I can right click and go back to my point selection mode and go back to the real point, which I was entering. So it's still in the command. And then I can go in there, and now it's snapping to that middle point, and I can enter my beam. So in the middle of it, I can actually add some stuff. And now this has a default of IPE 300, but my beam was IPE 360, like 60, and I can see that the beam is wider, the blue lines. If I double click on mine, if I open it and I change it to IPE 360, it immediately fits perfectly, snugly between those two. I can then continue, for example, over here, if I wanted to add a horizontal bracing, I could go and go to my horizontal bracing command. It's been slightly shifted from the node, so I can do that. I can zoom in. This is the working point which has been used. I can go to the other side. This is the other working point, and I can enter my horizontal bracing. This is a 70 by 7. What do I have as my default? It's a 60 by 6, so I can do 70 by 7 instead. And immediately I can see that it's now I'll just show you a few other things. Let me go and enter this IPE 120 beam as well, just to talk about a few things which are important. Let me go into that working point, come back over here, go and zoom in over there. This one was an IPE 120, so I'll just double click on that and convert it into a IPE 120. So very easily, I'm now moving over to the points. Now, these endpoints, as you can see, are yellow. This is nothing to do with the topic at hand, but just general comment, which is useful whenever you're entering stuff. These are yellow. If I were to enter this IPE 200 beam, which is the vertical beam, for example, let me go in there, start from here, and go all the way down. This is the point over here. This is my beam. Let's call it the IPE 2. But let me check it again. It's IPE 200. So let me do that. Now I also see that those yellow joints have turned blue. So I'm entering the points correctly. These DXF files can be problematic, as you know, and sometimes there's slight errors in the files as well. So you need to be careful. As you're modeling, I would always suggest make sure that your joints are turning blue. So this joint has also turned blue, which means that this one and this one are connecting properly. Now, just to show what kind of an object this DXF file is inside COMOSYS, it's called a DXF solid. There are different types of solids in COMOSYS, the generic solids and DXF solids. This one is called a DXF solid. So if I go to my visibility settings over here on the top left, and I click on this, you can see the DXF solids over here. And if I turn them off, for example, I'm left with whatever it was that I had entered, basically, right? Now, let me show you another example. Let me delete these. Turn off the DXF solids again. Delete this one as well. And go back to my file, import DXF. And go to find another file. And this one is going to be a section, a cross section, and I'm going to open it. Once again, we have the layers. We haven't talked about some of the stuff. We'll come back and talk about these later. And let me just import for the moment. And we see that this is a section, actually, a sectional view of a large structure. And if I would rotate it about a bit and show you, this is actually imported in the incorrect orientation. It's basically lying on as if it was in plan view. And this is not what I want. I actually wanted this to be in a sectional view. So what I can do is, let me just go in and delete that. And before I import, I can just change my work plane. If I right click and I go to my work plane option and I say rotate and move, I have several options. At this point, all I'm going to do is rotate it around the x-axis. by 90 degrees. And if I do that, my work plane is now rotated. Let me just close that. Let me go back to my import DXF, go and select the file over there, the section B file, which we just used, and just say import again. And this time, my section imported exactly where I wanted to. I had created a view already over there. Let me see where it is. If the visibilities have been turned off, I think. Yeah. So this is my sectional view, and I have my imported DXF underlay. And now, just like I did in the other example, I can use, for example, my truss command over here. I can zoom in and I can zoom to the other side, enter my truss diagonals and members the way I see fit. Now, we can enter a few more, but I would like to show you a little trick which we have. So let me just delete this and delete this one as well. Let's go back to our DXF import command. And this time, I'll select the same file again. These are the layers as we discussed. But what is this right-hand side? This one says, convert the following layers to frame elements. Now, this is quite handy. So what I can do is, I have, if I go down, there's a layer in there called the truss layer. These are the lines which were defining the truss, the ones I just used. And if I want, I can say, convert this layer into actual trusses. And for that, I can use the instead of beam, we have these options. You can either convert those lines to beams or horizontal braces or vertical braces or girts or purlins or whatever. I'm just going to convert them to trusses. And I'm going to say import. Now, when I do that, if you notice over here, if I zoom in, it's already, it's imported those lines. So let me just remove the solid. But it has converted those lines into native COMOSYS elements. That's very useful. Let me turn this back on again so that I can see it. Let me go to the sectional view over here. I can see all of them. Let me just do something over here. Let me turn this back off again for a second. Let me just select the top chords. The top chord is going like that. Then there's another one over there. Let me zoom in. This one, top chord and bottom chords. I can zoom in again, select this one and this one. Basically, I've selected the top and bottom chords. Let me press enter. And what I can do is, at this point, just give me a second. What I can do at this point is select my presets. So let me go in and say I have a cross twin profile as a preset. Let me just select that and load that. And I'm going to change the profile of all those top and bottom chords to a cross angle, basically. What is that? Let me just show it to you like that. I've converted into a cross angle with the gap between them of 12 millimeters on both sides. Now, what I can also do is, for the remaining parts, I can just go and select the whole thing again, press enter. You're familiar with this particular feature. I can go to the profiles, and this was the cross 8 profiles I changed into cross, and the remaining 132 profiles are still angles. So I'm going to now change them, the remaining profiles, into back-to-back L100 angles with a gap of 12 again. I'm going to load that, and I'm going to say, okay. Let me just zoom in. They have been created like that. This is basically what I want. They've been created exactly at the point with the rotations and everything. If I wanted to change the rotations, I could very easily do that. Now, what we can do from this point onwards is obviously we could just start connecting. If you wanted, we could just start saying, okay, I want to connect this one, this one, and this one, and this one with my bolted gusset connection, for example. This could be done very easily, or I could use the welded gusset connection, which is more appropriate for trusses. I could do like that. Or as you're familiar, another thing which I could do is I could use just, for example, I could go in there and just select a part of the truss or the whole truss and just right click and use the IntelliConnect option. And I say just create my truss connections with a gap of 12 millimeters. And if I just run that, it's going to go through all the nodes which have been selected, and it's going to make those connections for me. So this is very useful. It just gives me the final report as well. But just to recap, I can very quickly use my DXF underlays to bring in my steel, and then just either like I said, either enter my beams and columns over those lines or use those lines directly and convert them into beams and columns, and then basically start doing my modeling side. This feature can also be used if you've already modeled something and you want to compare it with a DXF file. You can also do that, just like we did a second ago. You can first, if you've already modeled, you can import the DXF file on top of that and see if you've made a mistake anywhere. So very handy, very useful. One little feature I want to talk about before we continue to the drawing side, and that is that DXF files, like I mentioned, are very can be problematic. Sometimes, for example, if the distance of 10,000 could be written as 9,999.96, or some small mistakes here and there. And so you can, while you're importing, you can give a decimal precision. So it will round off. For example, if I were to write, instead of this 100,000, which is a very detailed number, if I change this to 4, for example, it will allow me, once I import the model, I can change this long number to 4. What that will mean is it will round off to the nearest quarter, 1.25, 1.5, 1.75, or the round number. If I make it 10, it will now round off to the nearest 0.1. So depending, if I fear that there's a problem with the DXF files, I can reduce or I can make these tolerances such that they snap to the nearest round number to avoid those 999 type errors. Now, let me just delete this, what we just did, because I now want to quickly move to the drawing side. Let's delete these as well, or let me just delete these as well. Now, while on the modeling side, we can import these DXFs as underlays. We can do different things with them on the drawing side. So what I've done is I've just created a little drawing beforehand, not to waste time. Just that little structure which you saw. It's been imported over here. I'm looking at it from the plan view. The connections have been made. Now, what you can do is you can also import DXF files as some details or some symbols, or maybe you want to show something over here. So what you can do is, for example, if there's an electrical fixture, for example, just as an example, and it is located, for example, somewhere in the middle of this, and you don't have a point to snap to, what you could do is you could go to your points and go to dividing points, go in there, select this one, and then zoom out, select this one, and create this kind of a temporary point, which you can see on the screen over here. And then I go to my symbols over here, and under the symbols one, I have a DXF symbol. And if I press Shift before clicking it, it allows me to change the symbol, and I can go once again to the same similar dialog box. and I can go to the file selection. And for example, I can select a fixture, maybe this one, and import it. Say apply, okay. And once that's done, it's been loaded into this section now, and I can now just use it directly. I can select this one. So you see that electrical fixture has been imported as a section, as a symbol inside my viewport. Now, the good thing about this is that if I were to change my scale, if I were to go in and change my scale from 50 to say 75 or something else like that, and say fit, you can see that the fixture, the DXF symbol which we had entered over there, has modified itself accordingly. It has basically changed the symbol size, because it's taking the scale from the scale of the viewport. Now, what that tells you is that these things need to be drawn one-on-one. The DXF symbols need to be basically their actual size, and they will take the scale of the viewport. And whatever viewport scale you have, when you import them, they will just be there according. Now, if you import them somewhere over here, they will come in their actual size. So if I were to go in and let's say something like that, it'll be a huge symbol. This is the actual size of it, right? So I need to be sure that if I'm going to import something on the page area, not inside the viewport, for example, it could be a north symbol. So let me just do a quick example of that. Let me go in there, change that, go to my file, go take a north symbol. This one has been created much smaller. So I can just now apply that. And now I can go back to my symbol command and place it over there. And it has been drawn according to that, the size with which it was created. So basically, according to my need, if it is like a symbol, and it needs to be drawn on with the actual size of the symbol. And if it's not a symbol, but it's something representing some object, then it will automatically scale. So once again, it needs to be drawn on a one-on-one. Now, these DXF files, I'm not going to talk about that at the moment, but they can also be, so for example, this one, what we just did over here, this is, let's say, a symbol for some electrical fixture, which you could have also modeled it on the modeling side, and it would come automatically. But let's say in the modeling side, you don't want to model it as accurately as this. You just want to model the outermost, basically the outline, and because you don't want to go into the details of modeling. But on the drawings, you want a detailed symbol of that thing to appear automatically. So that is also possible. You just link these DXF files to the 3D modeling objects, and whenever those modeling objects are imported inside a drawing, they automatically, instead of bringing in the cube, the simple cube, they bring in the actual symbol which you want to appear in the drawing. Now, one final little thing before we bring this to an end is that you can also use these DXF things with some fields inside them. So, for example, if I were to, let me just show you, if you have DXF files, for example, this is a DXF file of a title block. If you notice that there are some things over here which begin by a bracket, less than sign, and end with a greater than sign. And then it starts off with the number sign. So these are fields. Whenever you have this structure with a less than followed by the number sign and then some name and then the closing bracket, this is actually a field. What that means is that when COMOSYS is importing this DXF file, it will replace this text by the equivalent field, which is available inside COMOSYS. So let's say we have a created by, modeled by, approved by in a title block. So let me just do this example quickly for you. Let me go back to my thing over here. And let me go to my modeling side and go to File, Project Settings. And inside the project settings, I have that created by, approved by, modeled by fields over here. And I can just say, give some names over there. And for example, like that. And I'm going to say apply and OK. Now, if these have been set in my project settings over here. I've set some fields. These fields can come from different sources, by the way. They come from either the project settings, or they come from the drawing itself, things like the scale of the drawing or the name of the drawing, etc. Or they can come from the macros which are creating the drawing. That's a separate topic, but these fields can come from different sources. So I've just entered 3 fields: created by, approved by, modeled by, and those fields were inside the DXF, the created by, modeled by, approved by title block. Now, if I go to COMOSYS and go to my drawing section over here, and if I want to import a DXF over here, and I go inside and use that A0 title block, which I just showed you with those 3 fields inside. If I do that, and if I say to the bottom right, and I just say import, I can immediately see that that DXF has been imported, but intelligently it has replaced those created by, modeled by, approved by, etc., with the field values. So in your DXFs on the drawing side, you can also include fields, and there, like I said, there are several fields which you have. There's some help available on that as well. And those fields will automatically be filled up for you. So very handy, very useful. A very simple topic, actually, but everybody needs this. Everybody uses it in all their daily work because we always get these AutoCAD files from left, right, and center. So we hope this was useful for you, and you can use it as a training video later on as well. Thank you for coming, and let me just stop sharing and see if somebody has asked a question.